Looks like we're live. I
Yes.
think it's working. Hopefully it's
Yes.
working. I have a very special guest today. I got Eddie Irvin here with me from Software Accelerator Playbook. He helps businesses build apps and software without wasting money and without the nightmare communication that you can have with developers. He's from saplaybook.com. And so I'm really excited to talk to Eddie here
Great
about
to be here.
enolve and about what the challenges would be with launching a new app. And I think a lot of people can benefit from hearing that as well, right? If you're out there an entrepreneur, you're trying to launch a new app, get it to market, what's some of the stuff going on with that? Eddie, so glad you're with us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to kind of have already started the conversation and learned a little bit about, what you're doing, but could you kind of synopsize for us, generally what it is and the hardest problems you're finding in trying to build this?
Yeah, so with enolve, we're building a inventory of every problem and every solution, right? Which it gets a little meta and it gets a little difficult to understand, especially if you can't really visualize it quite yet. But we're building something where we inventory every problem and we connect it to the solution that can solve that problem. And then also you can further connect problems with existing solutions to improve solutions and find the most benign, the most optimal solutions. That's what I'm doing. I have a patent pending on the general features for the UI and everything. And right now my challenges are to really communicate that to people in such a manner that they'll understand it, that they believe it, and that they're also actually willing to invest in it, because that's also the other challenge, right? In this day and age, I've built the prototype of this thing, so I know it can be done, but I'm not a professional developer. It's like if it were now 2005 and the way websites looked back then is much different, but the dynamic, the complexity that's
Yeah.
involved with what we need today to make something, right, stand out in the marketplace and not be like, well, I can get that on Facebook. In order to do that professionally, we need professionals. And those professionals, they're not free, and they need to be paid and everything. And so
Yeah, and
now, do I
especially
get investors, VC funding, or do I get pre-orders, or all that stuff? That's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, especially for a problem like yours, which seems like a very big problem, and to me, when I understand it, it feels like an impossible problem. Inventory every problem and every solution. That my brain just explodes at that point because you can do even on like one Stack Exchange page trying to solve one simple thing. There's 5 different ways of doing it. People are upvoting, people are downvoting, people are disagreeing, people are saying that's the wrong way, this is the right way. So one thing that I'm wondering is, when you're looking at people that have already kind of tried to solve problems like Stack Exchange or other things like that, what's the main thing that they're doing wrong, or what's the main way that your solution optimizes that or makes that better?
I love the way you asked that. Yes, because I'm solving the problem with problem solving. And that solution, the solution I think that I've discovered is, in the patent and in that mechanism. So I'll try to explain it in as few words as I can, but also I need to scope out what we have currently, right? And so from my perspective, what we have currently on the internet is mostly comment section. Even Stack Exchange, Quora, Facebook, even all the Q&A things, Reddit, right? They're all just comment sections. That's all you can do. You ask a question and then people comment, right? So that's the thing. Now the internet itself, or actually tricky. We have the internet, which is giving rise to the World Wide Web, and the World Wide Web then gives rise to comment sections, right? So we have to first realize that these are 3 separate technologies. Now the World Wide Web, with the ability to have URLs and connect them with links, and then the whole HTML thing, right? That is one technology that's really powerful. So you can build Wikipedia, you can build Google, you can search all the information, but it's just generic information. Now, comment sections that we mostly have on the internet are always question, answer, 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 answer. Maybe they're like going infinite layers deep. Right. Technically speaking, it's possible for you to link, make a URL, right, an A tag, link to some other resource on the internet. That's technically speaking possible. Now, the reason I came up with enolve, or part of the reason, is that on those sites that we have, like for example, Stack Overflow, it's community moderated. So it's totally up to the community to decide which is a good question and which is a bad question, which fits the format, which doesn't. So that right now is kind of in people's minds like that. And it's nice that you see the complexity of inventorying problems and solutions. But I think the simple system I found is that, what is a problem? A problem is only if you have a need or a goal that's violated, right? So you describe your problem, description of how a need is being violated, and then you say which need, goal, benefit, whatever thing, requirement you're trying to achieve, how is that being violated? That's your first connection.
When you
so
say
that's just,
can you clarify violated? When you say need is violated, can you give me an example of a need that's violated?
yeah, I mean, like, let's think of some random example problem. For me personally, I always think of political problems. So maybe I'll ask for your help. Can you tell me of a business problem, something that, or a software problem, that's something that
I need more
happens?
leads. I need more leads for my business. I need to figure out what I do to get more leads. How do I get more people?
Okay,
to
yes,
yeah.
Perfect, excellent, great one. So I need to get more leads. That is a description actually of a violated goal or personal need of yours, which is the need of possibly wealth or prosperity, right? Or something like that,
So
which is always like
goal, right?
The overall goal, exactly. Something that's the icon for it, right? I made like a little heart symbol in the cloud. And so it's kind of like, that's like almost divine, something that's
you want to get, right?
It's very intangible. It's very intangible, but whatever is that thing that you're striving for, what are you actually trying to achieve there? And so if I describe that a little more technical, I call these things terminal goals. Okay, so the terminal goals that we have, they're very different from the instrumental goals. And now your solution actually of building a business is just an instrumental goal to achieve the wealth or prosperity goal, right? Or whatever else your business are. Now your solution, business, is a standalone solution to achieve those goals. And the solution also, I like to think visually, so that's the green check mark, that's the solution that leads to the blue cloud. But there is a red problem associated to that, and that problem is I need to get more leads. And that problem, again, is connected to that same blue cloud. So now you have that mapped out. Goal, problem, solution. And you can map that further and further. And so the trick is to keep each entry standalone. So what we're asking earlier, all right, on Stack Overflow, we have like so many answers and so many suggestions and everything. So what we're doing different here is that we don't treat each problem as a completely standalone problem with standalone solutions, but you can take one solution that worked on another problem and you can connect it to that problem as well. So now you have one solution that fulfills two problems. But then maybe that solution has further attached to it two other problems. For whatever reason, that solution is not ideal. And so you just have to kind of be strict in how you communicate, that you just communicate in problem statements or solution statements.
So how do you get feedback then? Let's say you're trying to build this thing to be able to solve that problem of helping a business get more leads, and that there's solutions all over the internet. People have dropped, try this, do that. How does the system then choose, aha, that's a good one. Oh, that's not a good one. Oh, that's a good one for this type of person, but that's actually not a good solution for that type of person. How do you get the feedback? Because right now humans are doing it. Right now humans are saying, yeah, that's good. Yeah, and they're voting with their human minds and their human brains.
Oh.
How will your system vote, or how will your system prioritize?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's a very complex problem to be solved. And we're going to come up with good solutions for this problem, and I can give you several examples right now of how we could do it. But at the core of the technology, enolve doesn't even claim to solve that. We just claim to inventory them, okay? And that's very important distinction here. Okay. We currently do not have an inventory, a strict inventory that inventories problems connected to solutions, connected to goals, to just map that out, to just give us an overview. And then one more thing that you want to think about is character limits. So I think of it like Twitter, where each problem and each solution is just a very simple statement, right? And so this way, you don't have to do a deep dive into the whole problem and all the ins and outs and everything. You just, that's part of the challenge of problem solving. Just identifying the problem is a problem. And so we get people to just focus on identifying the problem with as few words as possible. And that's what I did in the example video, right? If not getting enough clients is your problem, we break that down. Well, is it your target audience? Is it your who knows, right? Which of these sub-problems are we attaching to that?
Okay, got it. So
Now,
the idea of like, I need more leads, that you see that now as like a complex thing, which then can be broken into these parts. And if you can break those into these little Twitter parts, then that inventory can be created, and then that inventory can be connected in this new kind of multi-layer database in this big bank.
exactly. It is multi-layer. It is multi-dimensional. Yeah, and it is there's several words of how I can describe it. Right, I can say terminal goals, instrumental goals, violated terminal goals. I can say an inventory of every problem, every solution, every need ever. Or I can just try to call it enolve and then help people understand what is enolve.
Right. Okay, so tell me about the person who doesn't understand what to ask, that doesn't know the right thing to ask. Is enolve going to be you, because you're saying, hey, you know, we're drawing lines around this. This is an inventory of problems. I'm seeing an input problem where I feel like one of my skill sets is being able to say what I'm looking for and then be able to iterate that to be able to then find what I'm looking for. If the first thing doesn't work, I try to say it a different way. And I feel like that's a skill set that some people don't know how to approach Google or approach searching for answers in that way. How will you help people ask better questions on the way into the software?
And that's a great way how you describe that. And that's also what I believe one of the core things that we're helping to solve here. And that's why I'm looking at the theoretical. Okay, hold up a second. It gets really philosophical and gets really technical.
You're good.
Here.
It's a big problem.
Theoretically speaking, just purely theoretical, problems and solutions and needs should be limited, because there's only a limited number of characters that you can put in, right? And then with that said, so okay, I'm sorry, I want to try to put out my thoughts clearly, but also move along forward on it. Okay.
I love it.
So let's say we create an enolve sphere, right? So that's another whole thing, that a good solution for enolve, I think, is to just allow for spheres that can use the system with their own parameters. Now let's create a sphere right now where the parameter is every problem can only be described in 100 characters. Okay, and then maybe every goal can only be described in, I don't know, 50 characters even. Who knows, something like that. Well, that's limited, right? Now, from all the things that can be described in 100 characters, some of those things are, the sky is blue. Hello, how are you doing? That's the thing that I can say in 100 characters. But it's not really a problem or a solution, right? So what are the things that I can say in 100 characters that are actually valid problems, solutions, or goals? And so now we've scoped down from all the possible information, including noise, right? Nonsense information, covfefe. I can put covfefe in 100 characters. So scoping it down to only meaningful things that are problems and solutions, that is limited. And then within that, there's one more scope down that we can go, and that is, do I say, I'm going to use the problem of homelessness because that's what I used when I first described that, so that's on my mind. There are lots of homeless people on the street, or people are living without shelter, or people are sleeping on the sidewalk. 3 different descriptions under 100 characters, but all the same problem. So now we layer further the problem as alternative description. And that goes further to merely inventorying, okay? I'm just trying to inventory information that exists in everybody's brain, and everybody kind of has it intuitively common sense. Well, yeah, you're speaking about homelessness. And you and I, we agree on this concept of the homelessness problem, right? And that's just a concept that kind of exists, and it's information, and it's in our brains. And so the inventory creates an aggregate of all information and brains and all of that. Now, with that in mind, your question was, okay, the skill set of being able to essentially find the right thing and filter through that information. I think what we've seen historically, and I'm saying that to make myself not look like the bad guy right now, but historically what we've seen is that businesses have always led to increased efficiency and automation. businesses have always made it so that it's not farmers manually doing crop stuff, but then they used horses to, get more done. Then they used big machines to get more done.
Right.
And now I'm also freeing up human cognitive capacities in terms of problem solving, because now I think it will be easier to type in words and find the problem and connect it to the solution, or see what other people who are a little more skilled than me have done, right? So we need people with a certain skill set to complete the inventory, to create
to train the system.
Yeah, train the system, or just fill in the information. Even it's and that's also where I think I want to distinguish. We live in a day and age where we have a lot of AI that can do a lot of things automatically. But also for AI safety, we need to even know, well, what problems should AI be solving? And for that, we just need to hear out people. We need to hear them out. And when somebody hears you out, like a doctor, you go to the doctor or to a therapist, they're going to be like, well, what's the problem? Tell me about it. And then they listen to you. And so that listening aspect, but still a little bit confined to the structure of that system. So that's also something that we do here, where you can just go on and kind of vent. Oh, pisses me off that this and this is happening. It's a problem because what I want is that. And just putting it out there, and you're frustrated about it and putting it out there, and then people can help to connect it and find opportunities for political improvement, systemic improvement, business improvement, all that good stuff.
Got it. So that's, as you were talking, realizing the idea of having people needing to train the system, what I'm wondering is there going to be the first version that's built that's going to stay within a specific scope, whether that's a specific type of business where, hey, here's a catalog of all the problems that we have encountered, maybe even in a singular business, that you have a business owner that just says, here's my brain, I'm going to dump every single problem. We ran into this, and then that can then be extrapolated to other people that want to build that type of business, that they can type in something, and then that would be I can see that being the first, because it's so limited, because it's so small compared to the world of problems. You build that bonfire really tight, and then you get it working and you get it being used, and then you jump to the next person and you say, okay, and then I can see that spinning up where you have better intake methods, you have refined intake methods, you have people that get onboarded as like an expert in an area that you trust to be able to train the system, and then the train kind of keeps going from there. Versus before, which I was understanding, the way you present it is this, we're going to solve every problem and inventory everything. And I'm just thinking, how do you even get there? My goodness. Yeah, I'm trying to see the top of the exponential curve, but it hasn't even taken off the ground yet. So I'm really curious about that. Like, is that part of your game plan to move forward to target either a specific vertical or a specific business to build the first working version of this thing on top of?
Fantastic question. I love the way you think, man.
Thanks.
And that's in business, and if you read and talk to people and stuff like that, I really like what Peter Thiel says about that in his book 0 to 1. He says every moment in business happens only once, and so that's where enolve exemplifies that a little bit, because if there is a problem that somebody solved before, then we have that solution. That happened once. Now, if you repeat it, you're not going 0 to 1 anymore.
Right.
So, and it's just, I'm putting out a hypothesis that with enolve, I might never be able to go vertical on a niche. Instead, my vertical is one of every niche. That might be my vertical here. That for the first 50 to 150 service providers, I get on board an expert from the medical field, an expert from social media ads, an expert from computer programming, an expert from each field, so that they can be the first ones to build the system at the ground floor and establish themselves as an authority on this brand new platform. And then once we open it up, right, again, it's limited. So if you already told me exactly how to figure out Facebook ads, some other person coming in and saying, hey, I have the secret for Facebook ads. Yeah, we found it already. Help us find some other secrets, please.
Right. Well, one thing that brings up a super interesting point too, because even like the world of Facebook ads, there's so many different ways to do it, and there's so many different recipes, and like, oh no, you have to do it this way, or oh, you have to do it that way. And I feel like every time I learn a new, it's almost like a new little bubble pops up with this new thing that I wasn't expecting. Yes, it has components of this over here, but it is its own recipe, and it does have its own downfalls or upsides. And then there's some people that completely change the game. There's a company I found recently that does sprint testing, and they have a whole different methodology for doing Facebook ads, which I'd never heard before from anybody else. Yes, they're using ad sets. Yes, they're using ads. Yes, they're using campaigns. Yes, they're limiting things with rule. Like they're doing things with the same recipe, but they're doing it in a totally different way. So what's interesting about that, like, and connected with enolve, the idea of, like, you know, we've solved Facebook ads because you had an expert who knows what they're doing. There's all these different layers of, like, yeah, but there's another way to solve the same problem. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out now is, what is the benefit of having a multi-layered solution to a problem? And there's, I guess there's two different things. One is, what do you do in terms of trying to build a software that starts giving utility? And that probably means, you know, limit it to one person and just have them be an expert. But then in terms of all of humanity and trying to build the best possible thing, humans are multi-layered, and we have different ways of doing it. And so there's almost an array that, there's a, you know, let's say there's one solution. Well, let's say there's all the solutions to the Facebook problem, but then let's say you step to the side and you go, but if you're this personality, or but if you have this kind of business, actually go this direction instead. And so then in the world of Facebook advertising, then you have two experts, where then you can start splitting it A and B, and then as it goes, then you have ABC, A, B, C, D, and then you allow people to self-identify and maybe even quiz on the way in. Yeah, I'm this type of person. Yeah, I'm that type of person. So then when you have your expert, you can have data points on your expert and kind of what they're doing and how they're doing it, to then be able to then segment your audience with websites, with landing pages, this concept of A/B testing, you know, which is better. I can imagine in your situation that just within the realm of Facebook advertising solutions, you've got this expert and that expert, and then part of the solution for enolve is choose your path. Do you more resonate with this kind of vibe, or this kind of vibe, or this kind of solution instead? But that again, that adds another layer, multiplying everything by 2, which then makes everything even more difficult to do. So it's not good for launch, but I'm just thinking, like, holistically, you know, people have different ways of solving the same thing. And then even in terms of different personality types, my wife and I are two completely different beings. I'm more intellectual, I'm in my head. She's more in her heart and in her gut. So the way that she learns and the way that she would approach something is completely different than me. I just want, give me the answer, tell me what to do. Just give me the checklist. Just don't fluff it up. But then her thing would be, well, tell it to me in a certain way. Come and hold my hand in a certain way. The way she wants solutions for herself isn't just do it. It's, we can do this together. Let's talk about it. Like, so that's another whole layer of just like human psychology and behavior. But I feel like what you might be building at the beginning is a more intellectual database for intellectuals and process-oriented people that just want the data out, versus the type of help that some people need, which is more relational help.
Totally agree, man. You've gone for a good ride there on all the things and touched on many important things. And you know, as I'm building that thing, I'm also contemplating a lot of these issues, and some of that gets really deep to the point of where, is this the right thing to be doing? Should I be doing this, right? So I'm gonna unravel it. What you just said about some people are more of the head, some people are more of the heart. Totally. And I feel that conflict in myself, and I think that's why the yin yang as an icon for enolve represents that well too, because once it is inventoried, once you actually have the map, it'll be, you can bring consciousness into your intuitive, feeling-based decision-making approach. Okay, because here's the thing. Right now, if you really say that you only make decisions rationally, which I would argue is impossible, but that's a different discussion. If you say, let's just say you do it, make it strictly rational, right? You manage to totally detach. You know, then somehow you map it out and you see it visually in front of you, and then you actually go through each aspect of the tree. You look at, this is the solution, but these are the problems with the solution. With these problems, I have these other solutions. And then, well, that's a little complicated, so let me back up. Now I have this solution. These are the problems with that solution. Well, this solution has fewer problems than this one, so I'm going to choose this solution, right? And that's, for example, something I did in my own launch strategy here for solving my chicken egg problem. I can code this thing myself. I can get a co-founder. I can get VC or angel investors. I can go B2B pre-sales, right? Call up the big companies that want to bring me on. I have so many options of what I can do. At the end of the day, I have to do it. So then I had just kind of feel into it and be like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
Do I want to sit down and call like big companies and do business talk, or do I want to like have one-on-one conversations on Facebook like you and I are having right now? Do I want to make inspirational videos about what the world could look like? And so that's why I've let my heart guide me and my intuition or whatever, my feelings guide me to a decision from all the logical available options.
Okay, so that's interesting. The way that you just explained how you decided what to do. You did the calculations of what enolve could potentially do in the future for other people. So you have in your mind, you have a brain, you have a computer that just runs, that has all these interconnected, however the heck it works. It can do the math. It can do the calculation. Somehow you got to a decision. So if and when computers get to the point where we can just map an entire brain, then that theoretically should be possible. But you also have had years and years and years of training, understanding what's this, and then you also have something inside you that guides you, that is more of like a you said what do I want to do? And what I'm wondering is is there any way to quantify that or put that into math?
And that's where that? I think once again you're trying to solve a problem that I'm not claiming to solve with enolve here. Okay, that might be one that we discover a solution to with enolve. What I'm just doing, I'm just creating the map for you. I'm convinced that everybody thinks this way. If you talk to every sales trainer, every person who does sales, they will always tell you that you need to find out what is people's problem, what hurts them, what's their pain point. You need to find out what do they want, right? So you need to bridge the gap from blue and red, and then you need to sneak in the green and be like, hey, would you want this solution? And because now their mind is over here of what they want and what hurts, and they're like, yes, I want that. Shut up and take my money. That's just that's how it works. And so part of the problem that I believe to be solving is that this possibly manipulative approach of sales and is not only inefficient, but also it can be easily black hat and kind of a psychological game to just extract money from people without actually providing a good service. That's how scams happen. That's how how you get cheated out of your money without receiving any real benefits, just promise of benefits, but never actual benefits.
Right.
And so just that's why getting every solution, every problem out there mapped out for us to have an objective reference, and not just the reference in our minds, because our minds are so intangible, right? It requires a lot of introspection to actually get to that map. And so I've externalized that map. I'm using computers to help us think, not by having the computers do the thinking work, but almost think of technology now in terms of, well, I have this new technology. You can write things down. If I ask you what is 300 plus 879, you can think about that, or you can write it down, which is easier. Writing it down is so much easier, right? It frees up your mental capacity. And so writing down all the problems and solutions, I think also frees up your mental capacity. Now, is it going to be perfect? Is it going to solve every problem in the world ever merely by doing that? Immediately, it's not going to do that. But as we inventory the problems, it just creates more consciousness and helps us see what's maybe not working. It helps us see problems we didn't see before because we were still wrapped up in our own mind. Because I'm solving the problem of problem solving, and I'm not solving it.
I love that phrase. I love that phrase, by the way. I'm solving the problem of problem solving. My brain flips over.
Yeah, it is. You got to think outside the box. And the problem with problem solving is thinking inside the box. And this is thinking outside the box, creating a new box. And I'm not solving this problem through some machine learning algorithm or whatever. I'm just solving it by gathering information.
Right.
Okay.
So tell me. So give me an example. I think that I'm understanding that your solution is trying to give a map of solutions, and I'm trying to kind of visualize, like, okay, I type in, what's the best cat food, or I want to learn Facebook ads. I need to know the best ad to run for my company. And then it does all of its looking and all of its finding. And then what do I get back? Like when I go to Google right now, I get option, 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 right? Like that's the format that I get back, is I can choose this, 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 this. Am I gonna, from yours, am I gonna be able to see a web from like, you can go this way, this way, this way, this way, and then I kind of like guide it to help me find deep down what I'm looking for? I kind of make multiple choices, almost like a quiz, where I'm like choosing one of 7, and then once I choose the one over here, then that opens up 5 new options, and I can choose that one and kind of go on a hunt through the software. Or like how have you visualized this so far?
What you just described, that little, you know, the tree, building out the tree visually, is something that I'm looking to implement at some point in the future. But for right now, the way it's going to look is very similar to what Facebook looks like. You know, on Facebook, these posts that they have with the colored background and a few words on them, and then the comments are below. Now, the only thing is we split out the comments, right? Actually, if you think about the Facebook post, the way it looks is author at the top, then the post, and the timestamp as well, right, with the author, and then it's comment or like. I think those are the options, right? Let's say on Twitter you have like, retweet, and reply. Yes, right? So on Twitter you have 3 options. And on enolve you also have various options. You will have the option to comment. So it's going to be a couple more checkboxes there, or a couple more icons on each entry. So the entry of a problem, you can comment on it like we already know. But the commenting itself doesn't build the network. The commenting itself just engages the conversation about that very one particular problem. But then the important thing is,
the commenting won't be the inputs into the software. The comments will be letting humans interact and leave their trails for this specific problem or this specific solution. So you can read more about it and interact with it.
Exactly. Yeah. So and that stays, you know, around this one problem, having conversation. That's not a new technology. That's what we already do. That's how you and I messaged before this thing, right? It's just back and forth sending of messages. Now, what the new features are is that you can, if it's a problem, you can add a solution. So you can make a further entry, just like that entry you had, that's going to be connected here. Okay. And that connection there is just, yeah, it's going to be like, it could be endless, but of course we're going to abbreviate it, and we're going to be see more, so you can keep scrolling down as they are more. Now, how they are ranked, that's going to be a great thing where you can do all your math magic and everything, right? That's something that I currently do intuitively. I want to circle back on that. That was interesting how you said that, right? I think we have in our brains the structure. Actually, I think most people do think like that, because like I said, sales psychology works for everybody, right? It's always about problem, solution, and goals and all of that. So I think we all have that structure in our brains. Now, what fuels the kind of the math calculation that we do, I believe, is our emotional chemistry, our circuitry, where just the things kind of you know, the endorphins, the brain chemicals flood toward that thing that kind of feels good, or whatever it is. I don't know.
It's amazing.
And, right. So that's what's going on there, I think. But back to what it's going to look like. And it's much easier if you just watch the video. I did a 10-minute video on it where I point that out. So left and right on a desktop, it's separated. Solutions here, further problems over here. Click on that further problem. It brings up that problem, just like I said, kind of similar to a tweet or a Facebook post that we're already familiar with. And then one more option besides commenting, adding solutions, adding subproblems, is looking at root causes and looking at the goals as well. So that kind of, it needs to collapse in. So then you see a different section that I think is less important, but you might also want to look at it, where you see the root causes. Well, this solution here, what problem was that supposed to solve? And this problem, what problem led to this problem as a subproblem, right? And what goals is it trying to solve? So without actually having it as a tree, it just helps you see the tree only differently. In the future, I would like to have some, you know, fancy, maybe even VR style 3D where you navigate the data.
Like that would make a lot of sense, where you can just actually be in a 3D space and like, yeah.
And that's maybe down the line, but for right now, let's keep it to the things that we know work and that we've done before, just with a few tweaks to them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And Facebook spent millions of dollars trying to figure out, how to get people to talk and how to get people to interact and what's the good format for certain things to get people to flow through a software. So that definitely makes sense to use that as a kind of a basis. So I guess what I'm understanding is that all this stuff is just linked in all these different dimensions. And, like you're saying, there's goals and then there's root causes. And like for one problem, that can be linked with multiple solutions, but then the problem can also be linked with root causes, and everything is kind of interlinked. It kind of, I mean, in the same way that our brains are interlinked, I guess, although I don't know, I'm not a brain person.
And keep in mind how the World Wide Web is interlinked as well, right?
Right.
It's
right,
just one website linked to another. That's how it started out at first.
Right.
Now,
Right.
just a little bit more, little less technical now. You don't have to keep in mind, oh, what's the URL again to get to this problem? But what kind of, with our UI, we're making it easier to link from one problem to the next and to
Right.
surf enolve instead of surfing the World Wide Web.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the main obstacle that you're facing right now? Let's say that you want to design this enolve thing just for one particular tiny little thing. Let's say that you go super small and you have one person's business. They've been in business for 30 years. They won some, they lost some. They figured out kind of how to sell X, right? And then you take all their knowledge and you put it into this system. What would stop you from doing that? Or what's the biggest, is it the human, is it downloading all the information from the brain into this thing and just information trying to pass from this into the software database? Or like, what's the main obstacle that you're finding is slowing you down or stopping you from just, here it is, it's done? What's blocking you?
What's blocking me there is a skill as a developer. Skill as a developer, because if I build this right now and I've built my prototype and it works, but it's kind of shoddy. It's like, so how I've built it to save myself some time, I've taken Drupal, a content management system, which has most of the things that I already need. But now what I need a little more is some dynamic functionality that's based on JavaScript and Ajax. And the JavaScript and Ajax with Drupal is kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest, because you have to kind of follow these specific rules and frameworks that Drupal puts out, and they just overcomplicate how much code you have to write and how much you have to learn. So what I need to go instead is I need to do a decoupled approach with an API for the backend, and then build the front end on top of that. And then, so basically that technology mess, that area that I have an expertise in terms of, I kind of have an overview, but I think there's people who are more skilled than I am, who can, who've done this full time for several years already, who are maybe as skilled in that as I am as skilled in video editing, right? Right now, you give me a video editing problem, you throw that at me, I'll tell you exactly, bam, 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 this is how it's done, this is what you need to do. I can find the solution for a video editing problem because I've spent thousands of hours video editing. Now coding and developing and deploying apps, I have not yet spent thousands of hours doing. I've spent thousands of hours teaching computer science and teaching how to code so that somebody can begin spending their thousands of hours getting a skill, getting that skill, but I don't have that skill.
Got it. Well, and what you just said is interesting, the fact that you can do all the calculations for video editing. I'm wondering if the prime candidate for the beginning of this software is you doing video, like creating this thing for video editing, where you just say, I've got all this knowledge, and then you just start inputting every day. You're inputting 10 new things, and then you turn around in a year and you're the first use case, which actually has quite utility, because then you hey, here's a video course on video editing, right? That's the way it's done now. Let me sell you a course. It's $49 and you got to watch the thing, and you can search through certain things or kind of go through and try to figure out where the problem is. But I'm wondering if you could download your information from this thing, start building out the database that way, and then actually get cash flow to sell it, not as a course, but as this informational, relational databasing thing, which then has immediate utility. It's something that actually you can sell, which then drives the next thing, which then, whoever you'd onboard next as the next expert, or maybe you've got, maybe you can do, you said you've been teaching IT, or you've been teaching computer science. So like maybe that's the next one, where then you help people who want to learn how to do what you do. And basically you're basically taking your life experience for, you've spent 10,000 hours. So now you go, okay, I know all the things. So then you just start downloading it. And I feel like that's the main, I feel like that's the main slowdown that I can see, that we have in our brains. We can do algorithms extremely complex, but then we can only get it out with our mouth and with our hands, and like, you know, you can only speak so fast, but you can think many times faster. And probably with Neuralink and all the stuff that Elon's doing, then we're probably going to be there sooner than we think, where we could actually just think our way into a computer. But while you're building this thing, I'm wondering if, because you've got the time and you've got the passion, you've got the idea, that there's going to be nobody else who's going to want to spend as much time as you downloading all of their data about one specific topic. But then once you get that core fire, once you get that core thing, maybe then the next jump over is finding somebody who does photo editing, where like there's you know, you're saying there was like crossover where everything's broken down into bite-sized pieces, that maybe that's it. Or maybe if it's, you know, if you're on a timeline, then maybe it's not photo editing, maybe it's audio editing, and that those have the greatest overlaps, because you're going to be talking about audio editing within video. You know, I'm not sure what the right direction is, but that might help you jumpstart.
I really appreciate that perspective. That's a very interesting angle that I hadn't approached like that. Yeah.
I'm imagining the time. I'm imagining the time it takes to get the first core of this, the first problem that you're going to solve, and say, we did it. Here it is. It's not perfect, but it works. You know, to get there, you have to download a human's experience into this thing. Or, I mean, I guess maybe if you could figure out some kind of scraper tool to grab things from Stack Exchange, and then you start, instead of you writing all the information, you find information that other people have written, and then instead of you writing out a paragraph, you just know, that's correct, that's a good one, check. Oh, that's a bad one, I'm not going to include that. And then instead of you actually downloading your information, you are just prioritizing information that you know is right, that you know will help people. Which would be even faster than you like tip tap tip tap tip tap tip tap.
Right. Well, the way you describe that right now, so I'm still a little myself caught up on the problem that the software does not yet exist in such a way to where it can be done quickly and efficiently and reliably, because the expert to build the software, I haven't been able to pay that expert yet, okay? Or I haven't gotten him to volunteer his time, or kind of, I feel bad about asking him to just volunteer his time, and maybe I can further those negotiations and whatever, and pay him on the back end and everything. But even that's where personally I think the ethical choice would be, well, if this thing will work like that, and I have a high confidence level that it will work like that, and I could then go ahead, once it exists, do like you said, take my own video editing expertise and try to put it in there, map it out there. It's actually a very interesting one that I should spend some time thinking about, the video editing problem. So then we're basically automating video editing. It's a bit of a use case that, you know, my primary use case here for enolve that I look in the big picture, okay, what is enolve going to do? It's like, let's think about those problems that, you know, that we don't have a solution for yet, like homelessness or world hunger or world peace. What's the problem with that? Why the heck have we managed to build those things? And in fact, I came up with this at a time when the streets were on fire in America, right? I don't want to make it too political here, but it's basically, I can, and me personally, I can relate to both sides. I can see why there's a lot of injustice going on in the country, but I can also see on the more conservative side why some of those claims are blown out of proportion and all of that. So right there's a more political exchange use case to help us find the solution in the system in things that are very charged emotionally, right? So the collaborative problem solving, that's more the thing. Now, it's a great use case, exactly what you described, to use a problem solving sphere as a knowledge hub and kind of, okay, we have books, we have websites, we have video courses. Now another thing we have is an enolve problem solving sphere for somebody to navigate problems and solutions and find exactly what they need. Instead of in a book, it's going to be in a problem-solving sphere, right? That's definitely a use case for that.
Because what people do now is they go into Facebook groups and they say, oh, this thing in my software, it's broken, I don't know how to do this thing. And then all the other humans that already kind of know that knowledge, they go, aha, you got to click that, you got to do this, this is what to do. And then you go, oh, thank you so much. I actually literally just did that with sales training stuff. I found some sales training groups. I just said, what am I doing? I'm stuck, or I'm looking for help. And then all these people, from all their experience, how many hours of experience did I just tap into? If each of them has 10,000 hours, oh my God, 100,000 hours, 500,000 hours of human I just got that in a second because it hooked with the humans. So I feel like that's where you see people trying to say these specific inputs that maybe your software could model after or use. Maybe if you join some video editing Facebook groups and you see the questions that people are asking and use those as an impetus to build as the input, where you imagine that they already know how to do that, and that you use that as a training mechanism. Maybe every day you hop into one of those Facebook groups, you find a question that you can answer, where right away you're like, oh, you got to do this and this. You grab that and then you save that as an input, as something that somebody would start with your software, enolve.com, boop, they just type that in the same way they throw in the Facebook group. And then from there, you try to break it down, split it out, whatever it is, and then then get to the answer, whatever it is. Maybe it's just one step, but then as the software gets more advanced, maybe it's 2 steps, or maybe it then builds a bigger cloud, or I don't know exactly until you get to the specific problem. But I can see that being an actual, like, using the world and the way that people think and their questions to guide the way that you input your answers into the software, using real questions that people ask and downloading that into the software as a saved thing, that then the next person that comes along, 5 years from now, that's like, I don't know how to do video editing, and they type that thing in, the software knows, aha, we already got this, however you would do that.
Well, exactly what you're describing. I'm sorry, I'm getting hung up on this one. I want to give you some pushback here. You're
Please.
already describing it. That's the exact thing.
Good.
Somehow, like, okay, just rewind the clock. How many years? To rewind the clock to 2005. In 2005, Facebook did not yet exist. In 2005,
is that true? Only 16 years ago? Jeez.
Exactly. And look how quickly we became focused on that. Where you think, oh well, I need to tap into all of human knowledge and expertise. Let's use Facebook. Right now, Facebook, a social media platform, is our best bet at tapping into human potential. The same thing where I go to connect with my friends from high school to just say, hey, how you doing? That has nothing to do with tapping into human expertise, where I'm trying to be like, hey, how you doing? When I'm trying to find out if my friend got married or not, has nothing to do with tapping into expertise. So first, separate socializing and entertainment and whatever socializing is, right? A whole world for itself. Facebook, they're great at that. Mark Zuckerberg, what's he always talk about? Connect people. Facebook is about connecting people. Now, lots of people, including you and I, the reason you and I talk is because we have hijacked this connecting people thing and we've made it about business. Now, I want to use business separate. I want to connect business and connect problems and solutions and all of that, which is also a social thing, but it's a separate social thing. Look at all the scrutiny that Facebook got under for using people's data and having influence on the elections and all of that stuff, right? So that problem is inherent to, that's my claim here. That problem that we've seen with Facebook is inherent to the architecture of how Facebook works. Now, I don't want to take down Facebook. I love Facebook. I spend all day on Facebook. It's a great app. I love it. It's fantastic. It's fun to connect with people and chat and socialize and everything. But I don't think that Facebook is a great solution for getting business done, improving systems, having political conversations that are actually productive. Now, can you have a political conversation on Facebook? Sure, it is possible. I'm happy to. But is it going to be a useful tool to solve political problems? I don't think it is. And I think for that we need, a different platform, and that platform I try to bring to the world. And now, exactly what you were already thinking. You already have your mind made up that if I have a problem, I go on Facebook, I ask it, and I tap into all this expertise, I get the solution. Now you think, oh, well, why don't you take that thing from Facebook and drop it here? Here's my solution. Why don't I try to teach people that we have a new platform where you can tap into expertise? Of course, we need to grow it. And so we need to kind of incentivize people to get on that platform, and we need to get the word out about that platform. And we need to say how it's different from Facebook, how it's different from Google, how it's different from Stack Exchange, how it's its own thing that has its own unique benefits and doesn't undermine the others. It actually helps the others become more of what they really are, so that people don't abuse Facebook for getting clients and helping people solve their problems. Because socializing oftentimes too, that's a big problem in relationships that you see a lot of times, especially between people who are more head driven and who are more heart driven. Sometimes people just want to be listened to.
Ah,
Right? Your wife comes home and she's like, oh my God, I had such a terrible day and my boss said this, and then my coworker, oh, she's such an idiot. So people just sometimes want to do those things. Now, as the
you want to be heard, you want to be seen.
right, exactly. But then the problem is, as the logical engineer that you are, you go in there, oh, what? Your coworker did this? Well, why didn't you X, Y, Z? You try to solve
step one, step two, step three, step four. Yeah.
It's like that's not what it was about. It was just about listening and being there and sharing experience, right? And that's a totally different thing. And of course, there's some overlap in productive problem solving requires first listening and finding out, well, what is your problem? What is your goal? What is it that you actually want? Is the solution something that we actually should implement because you want it? And so that's what I'm building the software for. And it goes a bit more into cognitive psychology, which is why the article on Wikipedia about problem solving and the common barriers to problem solving is about cognitive psychology. And if you look at what's the definition of intelligence? Intelligence, we currently define it as the ability to solve problems and overcome obstacles and stuff like that, right? So that's why I think I'm tapping into a whole new aspect of consciousness that is kind of untapped, which is why I applied for a patent on it, because I'm like, hey, I found this, it's mine.
I love it, dude. I love it. Okay, so I want to challenge you. I got to go soon, but I want to challenge you with one thing. So you were saying that you were thinking about like homelessness and world peace and things like that. And one thing that made me think immediately is that, like, specifically for homelessness, I've heard that there's an extra layer. Like, it's not just, oh, if you just do these things and all of a sudden people aren't homeless. Sometimes there's other things at play. There's mental illness and there's other things going on where even if everything is provided that could allow for an outcome that would have that person not be homeless, there's something going on there that just prevents that. And so that's one thing that I kind of want to drop in your mind here, is that I think right now there is a programmatic solution to getting out of homelessness. And, the first thing is we'll make enough money that you can just go buy a house. But then there's a million different things that are blocking that person from doing that thing. Some people that are homeless, they figure they want to not be homeless. They figure it out. They get a job. They are able to make money. They have the wherewithal to make money. They're not addicted to something that keeps dragging them down, et cetera, and they can get out. And then there's other people who will always be homeless because of, I'm not a psychologist, X, Y, and Z. I don't know what it is that prevents them. But this kind of solution, I don't think would help them, because even when those things are presented, they don't take action on them. And I think what you're saying is that this isn't something that will just solve the problem. This will inventory the problem and inventory possible solutions, so that if people do want to take action, when they want the answer, oh, I just got to figure it out, and they're looking on Google, they're looking on Facebook, blah, 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 that this is going to be a new way to search for information, a new way to be able to catalog the different answers and different solutions, so that people can stumble upon them maybe a little bit easier, or find them in a different way than they would have found them before.
Absolutely, love it. Yep. And that's where one solution to the problem of problem solving is also the spiritual solution of arriving here and now in the present moment and realizing there is no problem. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I have food, I have shelter, I have everything I need, right? So sometimes that is a solution to problems. And, that's where the intersection of psychology, spirituality, all of that comes in, and where I don't know what's going to happen, but I kind of want to make it happen. I want to see what's going to happen once we have that. Yeah.
Dude, I love your vibe. I feel like I've seen you post all the time, and I see them, and I it seems like such a huge thing to try to do. And at the same time, I'm like, at first I was just kind of like, oh, that's just a lot. Like, how are you going to do that? And but now I'm just like, wow, like, good for you for going at it. Good for you for trying to make it happen. Good for you for just diving down this road. And I'd love to continue the conversation and potentially help you. It seems I love your vibe. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Same, man. This was a fantastic conversation. I can't believe it's been an hour. It's been flying by. I really, really
Yeah,
like what
yeah.
we've done. Tell us, what can we get when we go to saplaybook.com? What is the problem that you solve, and what goals do you help people achieve?
I appreciate you asking. So ultimately, I'm helping people that have ideas. They want to build apps. They want to build software, and then I help bridge the gap to developers. So there's a lot of miscommunication in between there. People don't know what to ask. They don't know what they don't know. You know, they can find a bad developer that will say, "Yeah, give me the money, I'll build it," and but they don't know that it's a bad developer. All this stuff can happen in between. So I'm helping bridge the gap to have more success, waste less money, and not deal with that nightmare communication with developers that a lot of people have dealt with. So if you're interested, go to saplaybook.com and book a call with me, or if you just want to hit me up on Instagram DM, same thing, at saplaybook.
Excellent. Love it. Love it. So you bridge the gap between those things. That's perfect. That's a great solution.
Thank you.
Amazing,
Let's
man.
talk soon.
It's been really good talking to you. Yep. We'll hop off for today. Thanks for everything, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome, man. Take care.